Hello, it's Linda here from Just For Tummies. I hope you're keeping well. Now, as part of maintaining membership of my professional association, my regulatory body, and to maintain my insurance as a therapist, every 3 years I need to attend a 1 day emergency first aid course. And I've been doing this for many, many years, well over 20 years now. And I always do it with St John's Ambulance. So I get an email reminder through from St John's Ambulance, as I did a few weeks ago. And when it comes through, there's an inward groan because I think, oh no, this is a day out of my week that I can ill afford. Yeah, I know it's 1 day every 3 years, folks, but that's my immediate reaction when the email comes through. But do you know, every time I've attended this course, I've absolutely loved it. And I come away with a feeling of having really achieved something and knowledge that could 1 day save someone's life. So on this particular course, there were 12 of us. There were 9 men and 3 women, including me. And our trainer was a lovely woman called Heather. And I must leave her, St John's Ambulance, a Trustpilot review. Note to self for that, because she was excellent, and it was so obvious that Heather absolutely loved her job. Teaching people how to perform first aid and save people's lives certainly was not a job for Heather. That shone through. She was passionate about it. So yes, emergency first aid. Well, we looked at things like, I don't know if you've ever done any kind of first aid course, but first of all, on our course, we looked at assessing the scene. So if you see someone collapsed on the floor, for example, you need to assess do a primary assessment to ensure that it's safe for you to proceed, because you have to protect yourself first. And so we looked at the difference between a heart attack and angina. And with a heart attack, there's the obvious pain in the chest, maybe pain radiating into the jaw, down the left arm. You can feel sick. You can go very white, blue lips, blue fingertips. With a heart attack, there's also an overwhelming feeling of dread, of terror, really. So much so that you go to the toilet because you feel as though you want to empty your bowels. And this is why, lots of people, after they've had a heart attack and they've died, they are found on the toilet. Now, with angina is different. So a heart attack is where the heart stops, isn't it? But angina, some very similar symptoms, with chest pain and you're struggling to breathe. But usually angina comes on with exertion, with exercise, so like climbing a couple of flights of stairs. And once you stop and you get your breath, your symptoms begin to subside. Different with a heart attack, the symptoms don't subside, and you need to start giving that person CPR. So primary assessment, you check the person on the floor. The first thing that you do is call out to them. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? My name's Linda. Can you open your eyes for me? That's if they've got their eyes closed. If there's no response, if they don't open their eyes, then you look to see if they're breathing. You check their breathing. You open their airway, because when someone collapses and they're unconscious, their tongue can relax and it goes to the back of their throat and it can suffocate them. So it's important to open the airway by tilting the head and chin up. And then you need to call for help. Anyone around you, get them to call for an ambulance straight away. If they're not breathing, then you need to immediately begin doing CPR, which is coronary pulmonary resuscitation. So that's 30 chest presses to the tune of ha, 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 staying alive, and 2 rescue breaths, so blowing into the mouth. If you don't want to blow into the mouth because maybe there's vomit or blood in the mouth, then you can blow into the nose. And CPR, manual CPR, can work in 6% of cases. Now, you may not think that 6% is very high, but 6% is better than nothing. 6% is better than dead. If there is a defibrillator close by, or get someone to go and find the nearest defibrillator, then getting those 2 pads on and following the instructions that come with the defib, because they speak to you, they tell you what to do, can save 75% of the lives of people who have had a heart attack. So that's heart attacks, angina, and CPR. So we also looked at shock. We looked at fainting. We looked at choking. I've made a note here. Yes, shock, fainting, choking. Now, choking is something that's quite close to my heart, because many years ago, when our son Colin, who is 43 now, but when he was about 7, we went to Mallorca on holiday, and in the restaurant, he started choking on a fish bone. And back then, I wasn't a complementary health practitioner. I worked in a bank back then. And my husband wasn't a physiotherapist, so we'd not done any first aid, and we didn't know what to do. Luckily, there was someone on the next table who didn't know their first aid and was able to do the Heimlich maneuver on Colin and get him to cough out the fish bone. When someone's choking, when someone looks in distress and they go like, ah, 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 the first thing you need to ask them is, are you choking? And if they say, then you say, can you swallow? And if they say, then it's odds on that they are choking. So it's the slaps on the back, 5 hard slaps on the back, and if that doesn't work, the Heimlich maneuver. If you're not sure what the Heimlich maneuver is, please Google it. And then Jessie, our granddaughter, who's 4.5 now, when she was a few months old, I was in the house with her on my own. And she'd just been fed, and she started choking, and she went bright red. And because I'd learned this on my first aid course, I picked her up, I bent, I put her on the flat of my left hand with her head down, and I tapped her on the back, tapping her on the back between her shoulder blades, and eventually she vomited. She vomited the milk up. But it was a bit of a scary moment, I must admit. But had I have not done my first aid, I wouldn't have known how to do the how to get a baby out of a choking episode. So yes, we did that choking. And something that always stands out to me as well, and I've probably talked to you about this before, 2 or 3 times now, at least twice, I've been down to the to Guy's Hospital in London, to the Gordon Museum there. So yeah, Guy's Hospital, in the dissection rooms where people donate their bodies for medical science and medical research. So we're in the dissecting rooms with the cadavers, mainly looking at how the digestive system works. But then after that, we were invited to go to what is called the Gordon Museum. And the Gordon Museum within Guy's Hospital is this beautiful Victorian wood-panelled room. Actually, there are several rooms, but there's one big room and like offshoots of smaller rooms covered in shelves, and all of these shelves have varying degrees, sizes of glass jars that contain formaldehyde, and in these jars are various organs of the body, and they're all in sections, in categories as well. But one particular category that stood out for me was the choking category. And on this shelf there were 3 glass jars, and each contained an esophagus, and sorry, not an esophagus, no, a trachea. The esophagus is the food pipe, the trachea is the windpipe into the lungs, a trachea. And in this small jar there was a trachea with a tiny, tiny white button in it. And this was a baby who had choked to death on a button. And next to this small jar was a slightly larger jar, and in that was a marble, or a trachea with a marble lodged in it. And that was a child who'd swallowed a marble. And then next to that was a larger jar with the trachea of an adult man in it. And in it, you could still see a whole pickled onion. And this man had gone to a party on New Year's Eve. You can find out all the history of these various anatomical specimens, because there are books with the history. They're anonymous, there's no name, but it does tell you if it's male, female, age, what they presented with, what symptoms they presented with, and then what happened after that. So this man went to a New Year's Eve party, singing, dancing, buffet there, popped a pickled onion in his mouth, and we don't know what happened really, but he didn't chew it, obviously, and it got lodged in his trachea and he choked to death. And it just makes you wonder, doesn't it, if on those 3 occasions, if someone had known how to do the taps on the back, how to do the Heimlich maneuver, would those 3 people have survived? So what else did we look at? Yes, we looked at bleeding, both minor bleeding, moderate bleeding, and then what's called catastrophic bleeding. And Heather was telling us, well, she was demonstrating how to apply a pressure dressing and a bandage, and how to do a tourniquet. And it was interesting, something that she said to us. Do you remember I'm sure you do, the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester a few years ago now, when a suicide bomber blew himself up? Heather did say if more people had have known how to apply pressure to wounds that were bleeding and how to apply tourniquets, a lot more people would have survived that day. So yes, that's it. So I just wanted to do a video, just let you know the importance of doing some basic first aid, or of knowing how to do some basic first aid. I mean, I do know a lady, she's German, and in Germany, before you get your driving license, you have to do a first aid course, and I think that is a great idea. I mean, are children taught first aid in schools? Now, I was never taught first aid in school. The first time, well, I came across first aid when I was in the Brownies and the Girl Guides, and I got, my first aid badge that I sewed onto my tunic. But it wasn't until I became a natural health therapist that, as I say, to maintain my professional membership, my regulatory membership, and my insurance, that every 3 years I do have to carry out a one-day first aid course. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. A bit grim, I know, but I just think it's so important that we can, we can literally save a person's life if we know some basic first aid. Okay, thank you, and you take care then. Bye for now.